This is going to be an A to Z breakdown of when to time your workouts, when to time your meals, and a multitude of other things when it comes down to looking at ketosis from a fitness lifestyle or ketosis from a general health lifestyle. And in order to make this a perfectly balanced video, I am collaborating with the one and only Dr. Eric Berg. Dr. Eric Berg and I are the leading health experts when it comes down to ketosis on the internet today, so we figured, what the heck, let's collaborate. So I'm bringing Dr. Eric Berg here all the way from the East Coast, and we're gonna collaborate on this.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching, and Thomas, let's get started.
So we're gonna break this video down into a few different chunks. I'm gonna talk about the types of exercise that you should be doing in ketosis, and then I'm gonna hand it off to Dr. Berg, who's gonna talk about how energy is actually created in ketosis. And then we'll talk about a few other things. So let me get right into this part. You see, we have three different energy systems within the body. We have the aerobic system, which is where your body is utilizing oxygen as a source of energy. Then we have the glycolytic pathway. This is the energy system that you're normally using when you're working out, when you're weight training, things like that. Then we have the creatine phosphate system. The creatine phosphate system is what gives you that initial burst of strength. Well, here's what we need to be thinking about. What kind of exercise should you be doing to get the best results when you're in ketosis? When you're in ketosis and you're deprived of carbohydrates, you don't have the carbohydrates that usually give you the energy for the glycolytic pathway. What this means is that the repetition range of, say, 6 reps to maybe 15 reps is a little bit more difficult because that particular range uses carbohydrates as a source of fuel. So since you don't have carbs as a source of fuel at that point in time, it can make it pretty hard to have strength. However, we have those two other energy systems that we can utilize. We have the aerobic energy system, which utilizes mostly fats as a source of fuel. That's why when you're in ketosis, you feel like your endurance is phenomenal. Your body is usually using fats when it comes down to endurance activities. So you respond really well to cardio. That means increasing your rep range so it's a little bit more of a cardio burn, or doing a little bit more good old-fashioned cardio. You're going to get a lot of benefit out of it, and your body is going to preserve muscle because of the specific ketogenic state that you're in. So it's a great time to maximize on some low intensity exercise. Also, things like high repetition weightlifting, things over 15 to 18 reps. Your body's just gonna respond really well, and you're not gonna have that fall on your face feeling that you're normally gonna get in ketosis that happens between the 6 and 15 rep range. Now, the other thing that we can focus on doing is leveraging the creatine phosphate system. This helps us get a lot of strength in the early phases of movements. Those first 1 to 4 repetitions that you get when you're weight training are not even utilizing carbohydrates. They're using a very specific energy system in the body known as the creatine phosphate system. It has nothing to do with the amount of carbs in your body. It's a chemical reaction that occurs, which means that if you're in ketosis, you might find that you have a lot of strength in the first 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 reps, which means you can still get good muscle growth and good hypertrophy, which is good actual just muscle development, by working in that short, low rep range. So there you have it. You just simply work on either the low rep range or the very high rep range and forget the middle ground. You don't even need it at this point in time. Now I'm gonna hand off to Dr. Berg, who's gonna explain a little bit more about how ketosis and the ketones themselves actually give you energy.
Well, thank you, Thomas. That does make a lot of sense. All right, let's go into ketosis. Okay, what is ketosis? Ketosis is the condition where you're using ketones as your primary fuel. Okay, so what's a ketone? All right, a ketone is a byproduct of fat burning. Now, when you're eating food, there's 2 types of fuel that you can run your body on. One would be sugar or glucose. Second would be fat, which then will turn into ketones. Okay? Now, when you're not eating, your body will tap into either the stored fuel as glycogen or the stored fat as adipose tissue. And the way that you get your body into ketosis is by reducing your carbohydrates between 20 and 50 grams or less per day, not per meal. Most people only are burning their stored sugar fuel. They're not tapping into their fat reserves. And what's interesting is we have a lot more stored energy as fat than we do stored sugar as glycogen. In fact, I don't even like to use the word fat. You're not fat. You just have too much potential energy. It sounds a lot better. But there are many advantages to running your body on ketones versus glucose. Number one, your brain loves ketones. In fact, your cognitive function will improve, concentration, focus, mood elevation. Some people feel euphoric. Running your brain on glucose makes it very, very toxic. You're susceptible to the highs and lows of blood sugars. If the blood sugars go low, you're going to feel irritable, depressed, moody, and craving and hunger. When the blood sugars go high, you're going to feel tired, brain fog, you're going to have vision problems. So running your body on ketones can really heal the body. It can heal insulin. It can heal your blood sugars. And then you're less susceptible to the complications that come with that, like vision problems, of the lens of the eye with cataracts, with the pressure of the eye with glaucoma, the damaged macula, like in macular degeneration. All those conditions can be avoided when you run your body on ketones. So improving blood sugars and improving insulin has huge effects on the entire body, but specifically the four main parts of your body: the brain, the eyes, the heart, and the nerves. So I hope that made a lot of sense, but I really believe that ketosis is not some fad diet that's going to go away, simply because of the results, not just for losing weight, but for health benefits. All right, Tom, over to you.
That was awesome, Dr. Berg. So let's go ahead and let's get in now to the carb allocation, or the actual timing of your food when it comes down to your workout. So here's the interesting thing. I talk to a lot of people that think that whenever they're working out, when they're in ketosis, that they need to be allocating their carbohydrates to be able to get a good workout. Well, there is some theory to that, but the fact is ketones themselves give you a lot of fuel. So you don't really need to worry about timing carbs before or after your workout. A lot of people think that after you're done with a workout, you have to restore your muscle glycogen. Muscle glycogen is the carbohydrate that is stored inside your muscles. The interesting thing is, studies are showing that 75% of the muscle glycogen is reabsorbed without ever having to add extra carbs through the diet. What that means is that the body will scrounge up what it needs and restore the carbohydrates naturally, basically out of thin air. It doesn't need to have carbs coming from an external source. This proves that you can still work out and still maintain your muscle fullness and still maintain the muscle development that you need without allocating carbs. So if you do want to allocate carbs, the way that I would recommend doing it is via a backloading strategy, which means you're going to have your carbs after your workout in a very small amount of time, and a very small amount too. Okay, you're only going to have like 30 or 40 grams of carbs, just enough to help you get over your workout, not enough to kick you out of ketosis. Now, let me re-emphasize, the benefits of ketosis are the benefits of ketosis. You don't need to add the carbs to the mix. Your body is going to be in a really unique state. And there's one other interesting thing that we have to remember. Ketosis actually preserves your muscle glycogen more than not being in ketosis. Studies have shown that people that have been in keto for a long period of time end up restoring and preserving their muscle glycogen significantly easier than those that are not in ketosis. For example, if you were to eat 500 grams of carbohydrates and store it all in your muscle glycogen, and then go into ketosis for a long period of time, your body would probably hold on to that muscle glycogen inside your muscles for a very long period of time, because your body essentially turns off its desire to even use that glycogen. So it just stores there for when it's absolutely needed, thereby reducing the need to actually have to restore glycogen on a regular basis. So now I'm going to pass on over to Dr. Berg, who's going to talk a little bit more about meal timing in general, when you should time your meals to have the best results and to feel your best. So Dr. Berg, take it away.
Well, thank you, Thomas. All right, let's get into meal timing. When is the absolute best time to actually eat food? Okay, because when you eat is just as important as what you eat. So before we get into specifics, I need to bring up a concept called intermittent fasting. What is it? It's a pattern of eating and not eating, okay? The benefits of intermittent fasting are huge. You can greatly reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease, decrease blood sugar problems like diabetes, and you can even live longer, which is another great benefit, but it gives you cell protection, especially on the neurons, the brain cells, improving memory and mood, and even decrease your risks of certain types of cancer. Now, there are many different types of theories of why intermittent fasting works, okay? One would be it creates a mild stress that causes the cell to adapt and improve its survival. And another one that actually decreases your stress on the digestive system, allowing it to recover and heal. And then hormonally, by triggering human growth hormone. Intermittent fasting is the most powerful stimulus to human growth hormone. You can increase growth hormone by 1,300% in women and up to 2,000% in men. Not to mention lowering insulin, which is behind so many health problems. All right, let's get into the specifics. Okay, now there's both an art and a science to intermittent fasting. Now, I've been in practice for about 29 years. I worked on 40,000 people one-on-one. And so I've picked up a lot of great information that may not be science, but it's just practical things that really, really worked. So I'm going to show you some rules, and then I'm going to get into some science in the next section. Okay, so here's what I recommend that you start with. I recommend you start with 3 meals to make this really, really easy on yourself. So a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. Okay? The key is not snacking between the meal and keeping your carbs between 20 and 50 grams per day. Okay? So you're going to do this pattern over a period of, let's say, a few days to a week to get comfortable to it. Okay? The goal is not to be so darn hungry between the meals. If you can't go from one meal to the next without severe hunger or a drop in blood sugars, you need to add more fat to the meal. Okay? Adjust the fats to go longer. Don't do a low-fat diet or a low-fat proteins. Increase the fat. So you're going to do this until you're comfortable. And then I recommend you go to 2 meals per day. Slowly, by taking your breakfast and actually pushing it forward and forward, because what you want to do when you get up in the morning, ask yourself, am I hungry? If you're not hungry, don't eat. That's the rule number 1. Okay? Only eat if you're hungry. So what you want to do is slowly bring your breakfast, let's say from 8 to 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning to 11, till eventually it disappears and you only have your lunch and your dinner. Between these 2 points, it's called your eating window. Do you go to 1 meal a day? Well, that's up to you. It depends on how much weight you want to lose and what kind of health benefits you have. You may find you want to do this later, but I only really recommend starting here, going to here, and then decide at that point if you really want to do 1 meal a day. A lot of people want to do 1 meal a day, and they do very well with that, even huge bodybuilders. Now, a few days ago, we went on a trip. My wife and I went on a trip, and we flew across the country, about 4.5 hours of flight. I didn't eat anything in the morning, and by the time we landed, it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No food all day, no snacks on the plane, nothing. I was feeling great. I had no hunger, no cravings. I could probably keep going. I'm normally doing 2 meals a day, so I actually ate when we landed. But the point is that when you get your body in ketosis and you fully adapt to this is called keto adaptation, you're going to feel really good, and you're definitely not going to crave anything. So you want to start with 3 meals, then gradually go to 2 meals. If you want to take it to the next step, just take your dinner and start moving it slowly this way and your lunch this way, to the point where you have this 1 meal that actually lasts 2 hours, and you're just taking your time. You might have your salad, wait a little bit, and then eat some protein, wait, and have some fat. So a couple things you need to remember is do this gradually so you can make it easy on yourself, and also realize the nutritional requirements when you're doing intermittent fasting are much different when you're eating frequently. Your body can get into a state where it needs less nutrients, less dietary protein, and that's why you don't have to have the identical calories. Let's say this is an 1,800 calorie day. This would be a 1,500 calorie day, and this would be a 1,200 calorie day of food. It would be really hard to consume an 1,800 calorie meal. So don't worry about that, because the amount of nutrients that you really need when you're doing this are much less than this right here, because you're improving insulin resistance and you're absorbing more nutrients, whereas having insulin resistance right here blocks your ability to absorb nutrients. All right, let me show you this next part. Okay, so now let's talk about something really cool. Let's talk about the real benefits of intermittent fasting that go way beyond just weight loss, okay? It's autophagy. What is autophagy? Autophagy is a condition where the body starts to recycle old and damaged proteins. Your body takes these damaged little pieces of the cell, recycles them into new amino acids to build new tissue. Autophagy also cleans up old microbes like bacteria, candida, yeast, mold, and even viruses. So it's the ultimate in anti-aging effects and immune function. So the word autophagy was coined by a Belgian biochemist in 1963, Then the autophagy genes were identified in the 1990s, and in 2016, a Japanese researcher was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology for his research in autophagy. When you really understand the magnitude of what this can do for your body, and then you apply it and you see it for yourself, you're going to be blown away. So to get into autophagy, it takes about 18 hours of fasting, okay? So let's say you ate at 12 noon, and then the second meal was at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, okay? Then you wouldn't eat all the way until 12 o'clock at noon. That would start giving you the benefits of autophagy. So you can continue to improve the benefits of autophagy by increasing the time of fasting, but it seems to stabilize at about 23 hours. Okay, so that would be like 23 hours of fasting and you would eat one meal. Okay, but start out trying to achieve this right here, 18-hour fasting with 6-hour eating window, and then take it from there. All right, Thomas, back to you.
As always, Dr. Berg, you're blowing my hair back with science, just like I like to do for my viewers. Now, what I want to talk about here is the actual timing of your workout. When's the best time to work out? When's the best time to exercise when you're in ketosis? Well, it varies, but there's really two ultimate things you need to pay attention to. The number one thing is that when your body is producing ketones, you have an amazing source of fuel. So by being in ketosis already, you have a tremendous fuel source. But did you know that when you are fasting, you're producing the same thing that you're producing when you're in ketosis? Fasting produces ketone bodies, and ketosis produces ketone bodies. So guess what? If you are in ketosis and then you fast overnight, you are in a fasted state where you have even more ketones being produced than you would if you were just in ketosis alone, thereby making it the best time to exercise in a totally fasted state before you've eaten anything. Because at this point, your body is looking for ketones. So it has no choice but to pull your ketones from your stored body fat. It pulls the fat, takes it to the liver, and turns them into ketones, giving you amazing fuel for your workout, but also a tremendous body composition effect where your body just torches fat like no tomorrow. But I also understand that not everyone can work out in the morning. It's not always realistic, and sometimes it's hard for people's schedules, and sometimes it's just hard to wrap your mind around training on an empty stomach. So if you do have to work out at a different time of day, I highly recommend this strategy. Keep your protein very, very low your meal prior to working out, but keep your fats nice and high. So drop your protein lower than you ordinarily would. And here's why I want you to do that. That extra protein that you would consume with maybe say lunch could very easily get converted into sugar through a process known as gluconeogenesis. If it gets converted into sugar, your body's going to want to burn that sugar first before it ever starts to burn fat. So it basically cut to the front of the line. Your body has to burn that sugar first before it ever tries to burn your body fat. You're basically just slowing yourself down. But if you keep your protein levels lower and you keep your fat levels high, your body is going to remain adapted and conditioned to utilize those ketones. So those are the strategies when it comes down to timing your actual workouts. Now to wrap it up, I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Berg, who's going to talk a little bit more about ketosis and meal timing in general to help you get the most out of your lifestyle.
All right, guys, so now let's summarize keto and intermittent fasting together. If you're going to do keto, you need to do intermittent fasting. If you're going to do intermittent fasting, don't do it with junk food, do it with keto. They both work together because keto and intermittent fasting is the ultimate health building, health creating program. It's not just about weight loss, it's about getting healthy. So we start up with 3 meals, okay? 1,800 calories. So you want to start out with vegetables or salad first because an average person needs between 7 and 10 cups of vegetable or salad per day. Why? Because our requirements for nutrients are quite high, especially for something like potassium. We need 4,700 milligrams of potassium every single day if you're doing 3 meals, okay? This goes down if you're doing 1 meal, but for 3 meals, you need a lot of potassium to run the body on. So you would have to consume about 10 cups of vegetable or salad for this entire day. It might seem like a lot, but you should just do it for a couple days and see how good that you feel. So it's not that hard. 3 1/3 cups of salad, 3 1/3 cups of vegetable, 3 1/3. That's almost 10 cups right there. Okay, so you start with your vegetables and then you do your protein. So this is just an average of protein. If you're a real big guy or a small person, you're going to adjust this right here. But an average person would need 4 ounces of protein, 4 ounces, 4 ounces. That gives us 12 ounces of protein, okay, per day. Now, if you're doing one meal, you're not going to do 12 ounces of protein. That is too much. You'll do 8 ounces of protein. You're not going to do 10 cups. Well, you could, but let's just say 7 cups of vegetables right here. And then in the middle right here, 2 meals a day, you do 4 cups and 4 cups of vegetables or salad. It's not hard to do that, just 2 little bowls of salad. Okay, so now the calories for 2 meals would be roughly about 1,500, and the protein for each meal would be 5 ounces and 5 ounces, giving you 10 ounces for the whole day. Again, you might have a little bit more, maybe a little less, okay? Now we come to the fat, okay? This is the wild variable that's very confusing for people because it can range from a very small amount to a very large amount. And when you're starting out, you need more fat. Why? Because you're not fat adapted yet. And you need fat to go from one meal to the next. When you become fat adapted and you're in some major ketosis, then you need less because your body can now burn your own fat as its food. Make sense? In the beginning, you're not burning your own fat. It takes a while to go into that. So the point is, there's 2 places where you might need to add more fat. In the very beginning, and in a maintenance program where you hit your weight loss goal, you don't want to lose any more, and you're going to have to add more fat so your body can use that as fuel and not your own body fat. Now, to determine how much fat you need, realize that some of the fat is going to be in the protein and on the vegetables as some dressing or something like that. So you want to test this out. So maybe you start out with a handful of pecans or some peanut butter with celery or a half of an avocado, but you want to play around with how much fat you need. The way that you know that you hit the sweet spot is that you're able to go from one meal to the next without any discomfort of bloating or right shoulder pain, because if you overload the gallbladder, it'll cause pain in the right shoulder or the right side of the neck because there's a nerve that connects to that side. So you want to experiment with the amount of fat that you need. On average, you would need about 140 grams for 1,800 calories. Okay? Now, if you're doing 1,500 calories, it would be 113 grams. And again, I don't like to tell you that because I don't want you measuring different grams because we're not about measuring the calories of something. I'd rather have you guesstimate and start out consuming some fat and just see what your body responds to, okay? Then when you go into one meal a day, let's say you're at an average of 1,200 calories. Again, this is a generalization. You'd be roughly around 86 grams of fat. And when you go from this meal to this meal to this meal, the nutrient requirements decrease, and so you don't have to worry about getting this 10 cups of salad. You can eat less, okay? And also that goes for the protein as well. Now, as far as between the meals, you can consume liquids. It's not going to be an issue. Just make sure there's no carbohydrates. So if you want some coffee in the morning, that's not a problem. Just make sure that you add an alternative sweetener if you need to use that, a half and half or a whole cream, which would be even better. There's something called bulletproof coffee that I'm not going to get into, but you can even do that in the morning. But just realize the more fat that you would put into that coffee, that could act as a meal. So test the waters. I'm not against that, but let's say, for example, you add this bulletproof coffee where you're adding MCT oil and all of a sudden the weight loss slows down. It's because that's just too many calories to trigger the insulin effect and that bumped you out. So maybe take that out and just drink the coffee, get back in the fat burning with these 2 meals here. Again, this is a combination between an art and a science, and you really need to kind of test it out in your body to see what works good on you. So Thomas and I personally want to thank you so much for watching our videos, watching this joint video, and if you're interested in future videos, please let us know down below of what you would personally want to know more about. All right, thanks again.